Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our press conference following the Foreign Affairs Council. The High Representative will brief you now on today's discussions with the ministers. High Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Today we have a grim anniversary. 3 years ago today the war started in Ukraine, and I guess we can all recall where we were at this exact moment when we heard about this. It is no question who is the aggressor and who is the victim here. Russia started bombing Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022 and is continuing to do so. Nobody in Europe wants the war to continue, and nobody in Europe wants the war less than Ukrainians. They want peace on their territory, and this is very clear. And that's why we have to be really strong against the aggressor and achieve peace through strength. EU is standing behind Ukraine. We have promised to do so and are doing so. So today we adopted important decisions. We adopted the 16th package of sanctions that includes several items, and we continue to work on the 17th package. We also discussed, and ministers broadly supported, the new initiative for military aid for Ukraine. And of course, the details and especially the numbers will be decided and discussed on the extraordinary European summit on the 6th of March. We have to put Ukraine in a position of strength so that Ukraine is able to say no to a bad deal. And then, second point, we discussed Congo. So situation is very grave, and it's on the brink of a regional conflict. Territorial integrity is non-negotiable in Congo as well as in Ukraine. The UN Charter also applies everywhere. We support the Luanda-Nairobi peace process clearly to achieve the results by diplomatic means, but we are also taking several steps. So first, EU defense consultations with Rwanda have been suspended. There's also a political decision to implement sanctions dependent on the situation on the ground. We have urged Rwanda to withdraw its troops, and the memorandum of understanding regarding critical raw materials will be under a review. Then briefly we discussed the situation in Georgia. The adoption of repressive legislation and excessive use of force against protesters is alarming deterioration in the region. All these protesters must be freed immediately. And it is clear that the steps Georgia is taking are not going to the direction of Europe. We expect certain values, certain steps to be taken by the candidate countries like Georgia is, and it's clearly not, Georgia is definitely not taking the right steps. Then finally on Middle East, we discussed Syria, also Israel-Gaza situation, but also Lebanon. On Syria, there is hope to build an inclusive country, and we are closely working together with the regional actors to achieve this. And this is why we also agreed to suspend energy, banking and transport sanctions. Today, the lifting is immediate and open-ended, but can be reversed if Syria's new rulers backtrack their commitments. So it's a step-for-step approach. In March, we will also have a 9th Brussels Syria conference on the 17th of March. We will have a conference to further mobilize support for Syria. Of course, on other topics later today, we will have Israeli counterpart in the Association Council meetings. So usually the Association Councils are only between European Union and the country involved, but this time the member states really insisted to be present as well. So we first have a political dialogue together with all the member states with the Israeli counterpart, and then we will have more detailed discussions of our own cooperation with between the European Union and Israel. So on situation on the ground, so we urge both sides to seize the opportunity to move into the second phase of ceasefire, and this is a critical moment to break the cycle of violence. I expect the ministers will emphasize also Europe's commitment to Israeli security and stress the right of return for every displaced Palestinian for whom Gaza is their home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll start with questions. Andy, please present yourself and the media outlets you're working for.
Thank you. Andrew Gray from Reuters. High Representative Friedrich Merz, the likely next Chancellor of Germany, the winner of yesterday's election, said in remarks last night that he thought the US administration did not care much about the fate of Europe. And he also questioned whether NATO would exist in its current form by the time of its summit in June. Was there any discussion about that point of view, about those remarks today? And what's your view on them? Thank you.
Thank you. First, there was not a discussion about this because it is not a NATO meeting, and we had a very clear agenda. But it's clear that the statements coming from the United States make us all worried. What is the state of play of the transatlantic relationship? It is clear that we have had differences before, but we have always managed to sort them out, and we also expect to do so this time. We are reaching out to American new administration. I will also tomorrow travel to United States to meet Marco Rubio and other representatives there to discuss the issues that are of interest to both of us. But I want to stress that NATO is a defense alliance that is there to be for the defense of all the members. And it has worked well also for America. Let me remind you that the only time Article 5 was called was for America. So countries like my own went to support America in their issues, and we lost a lot of soldiers there. I mean, we lost 12 soldiers as Estonia, and if you think how small country we are, I don't even know what is the percentage to compare. But it's clearly that we were with our allies, we hope that the transatlantic alliance works, because it has worked for both ways, and so far we don't have any indication that it wouldn't. Of course, it's going to change. That is very clear, but we shouldn't. Throw something out to the window that has worked well so far.
Alexandra.
HRVP, thank you. Alexandra Voudouri with Greek Daily Καθημερινή. One question following today's talks with the foreign ministers. Do you sense that next week, during the Extraordinary Council, there will be concrete decisions regarding the long-term security for Ukraine? And secondly, you just said that you will be reaching out tomorrow, the US administration, and you're meeting with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. My question is, what are your principal aims for these talks? I mean, will you try to convince them that Europe needs to be at the table, negotiating table? Thank you so much.
Thank you. First on the initiative. So today around the table, I heard a broad support for the initiative. So we didn't have concrete numbers in the initiative so that the leaders would fulfill them or fill them in. And I think, today it was a broad support for the principles that we have to move forward. And I saw a lot of willingness around the table to do so. So, yes, I expect, and I also said there that, some said that we need to explore this, so we need to discuss in details and take the time. The problem is that we don't have time, and that's why I really pushed that on the 6th of March we are able to take decisions because it's important to send also the signal that we are able to do this. So I'm positive or optimistic, I would say, regarding this. On the meetings, so I will travel tomorrow, but the meetings will be on Wednesday and Thursday. With what are we going? Of course, what is going on right now, the war in Ukraine, and how what is at stake really, and what is the European position on different issues. I've been very clear that no deal without us, without Ukraine or without Europe, will not work in practice, and therefore US also needs to work with us. A bad deal for Ukraine is a bad deal for Europe, but it's also a bad deal for America. And I must say, last week I was in South Africa and met a lot of leaders from different parts of the world, and everybody is very concerned about the multilateral system, really, whether the international law that we have right now that protects sovereign states from aggression by other states is really in place. And I think it's in the interest of everybody that we are not in the world where might makes right. And that's why we have to be also behind Ukraine. It's not only about Ukraine, it's broader European security architecture, but actually broader global security that is at stake.
Mm-hmm. Valeria.
Hello, Valeria Pashko, the public broadcaster of Ukraine. So on the light of the recent statements that coming out from the White House and the statements by European leaders that Ukraine is needed to put in as strongest possible position for negotiations, what my question is so practical, what the real security agreements the EU can provide Ukraine with. And one more clarification, today is also the anniversary of the annexation of Crimea. Can you confirm that the statements of European officials regarding the territorial integrity of Ukraine includes also Crimea? Thanks a lot.
Security arrangements. So, of course, all the member states, and not only member states, but also countries in the broader global sphere that have signed security agreements with Ukraine, have to answer what are they in practice. If you think in practical terms, what could they be, then you come to the same items that are there. I mean, for any security guarantee to work. The strongest security guarantee, and actually also the cheapest one, is NATO membership. If NATO membership is not on the table, although we agreed that Ukraine's path to NATO is what was the word? Yes, irreversible. Thank you. Irreversible. So we agreed this. So in the end, Ukraine must be also part of NATO. If it is not in the first stage, then all the countries who have provided security guarantees have to answer questions about troops on the ground, about weapon ammunition supplies to actually guarantee the security, and we have have to have those talks as well. By the way, I had a discussion with one American representative in Munich and said that, you know, we need strong NATO. I said that if you want a strong NATO, then take Ukraine in, because the strongest army that there is in Europe is Ukraine army. Thank you.
Justina.
Hello, my name is Justina Ilkevičiūtė, Lithuanian public broadcaster. I would like to ask, Lithuanian minister said today that there is a possibility to reach an agreement how to confiscate Russian frozen assets this March. Do you believe that European Union could reach an agreement this March? If no, what are the main obstacles? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We need to have everybody's support for this, and so far we don't have the support for this. March will start this Saturday, so I am not that optimistic that we will reach an agreement in March. But at the same time, I must say the work is ongoing, and I must also say that during this Foreign Affairs Council, there was one more country that came who used to be against moving on with this and came on board. Because this is what I've always said, you know, eventually, especially in the situation where we are right now, then eventually we all come to the conclusion that our taxpayers shouldn't be the one who are paying for this. It should come from the country that destroys Ukraine, which is Russia.
Two more questions. The gentleman there, and then Suniva.
Thank you very much. My name is Kasra Naji. I'm from the BBC's Persian television. Two questions, one on Ukraine. What is the message of the meeting today? You had 27 foreign ministers of 27 countries vis-a-vis Ukraine today. What are you saying, particularly to the Americans? One. Second question, I was under the impression that Iran was on the agenda of some sort. Did you discuss Iran? And in any case, what is the attitude and policy of the EU vis-a-vis Iran now that the US has put maximum pressure on Iran? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Regarding Ukraine, we are saying that we are behind Ukraine, and there is nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and also nothing about Europe without Europe. These are also the messages that we are giving to our United States counterparts. And to make, I think, the decisions we did today is also to the direction to make Ukraine as strong on the battlefield as possible, so that they would be stronger behind the negotiation table. On Iran, we were supposed to have a discussions, ministers-only format regarding Iran today, but because very important foreign ministers were missing, so we postponed this because, I mean, we need to have the E3 also in the discussions, and that's why I'm not jumping ahead, because the point was to have ministers-only discussion to get the understanding where we are, so that we are able to come out with initiatives and concrete proposals. But yes, we postponed it to March.
Thank you. Last one goes to Suniva.
Thanks, Suniva Rose from The National. I have a question on Syria. You made some significant announcements regarding the banking sector, specifically to allow transactions associated with the energy and transport sectors. I was interested in understanding if there are guarantees for European companies that want to operate in Syria that they're not going to have issues with the banking sector because Syria remains under, the financial sector in Syria remains under US sanctions. So is there a way of facilitating work for European companies that want to work in Syria following these exemptions that you've introduced, and so that they don't run into issues with the US banking sector? Thanks.
Well, banking sector is always very complicated. I mean, even in European countries, companies might run into difficulties with the banks. So can we give a guarantee? No, we can't. But we can, from our side, do the steps that we have done to introduce new exemptions on the prohibitions on the banking sector to allow banking and financial transactions associated with the energy and transport sectors, as well as transactions needed for humanitarian and reconstruction activities to work. Also, banknotes, coins, exporting them, so far they were restricted. So it is all, the point is that, the reconstruction can start, the people of Syria, also refugees, can go back and start to participate in the reconstruction of the country. Also, four Syrian banks were removed from the list of asset freeze, transaction ban, removing Syrian Central Bank, for example. To reopen the banking sector and also payment channels, because this was something that was always addressed, that it really hinders the reconstruction. But can we give guarantees that everything goes smoothly? Then unfortunately no. But we try to do steps from our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, High Representative. Everybody, we see you tomorrow in the press room. Have a lovely afternoon.